Dear students and counselors, we welcome you to today's webinar on how social science and law helped Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to become an outstanding public policy practitioner. The webinar is being hosted by the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy, OP Jindal Global University, in collaboration with TNI Career Counseling. Dr. Ambedkar was a man of vision. His consequential contribution to our Indian polity has shaped the lives of many, especially the ones who were renounced by the draconian rules of our caste-based structures. He was a jurist, an economist, a politician, and a social reformer. Dr. Ambedkar's life journey has become a source of inspiration for many who dream to pursue his footsteps. He was a prolific student, earning doctorates in economics from both Columbia University and the London School of Economics, and gained a reputation as a scholar for research in law, economics, and political science. So how did Ambedkar's life journey and his life experiences served him to become the man he was? Why is his journey relevant for the India we are in today? And more importantly, how can passionate students of today who have deep interest in public life and genuine desire to contribute to the richness of our policy and governance systems draw lessons from his life as they explore their own paths? These are the questions that would drive our discussion today. Before we begin the webinar, I would like to request you to utilize our chat window for your questions. We would be taking the questions at the end of the discussion. We would also request the participants to register themselves through the link provided in the chat box. It will help us know you better. Now, to throw some light on the increasing relevance of social science and policy today, to understand the contributions of the stalwarts in the field, and to provide guidance to our students who are planning to pursue a career in the field, we have with us today Professor Sudarshan Ramaswamy and Professor Sumeet Mhaskar from the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy. We also have with us Mr. Dhaval Mehta, CEO and founder, TNI Career Counseling, a global education consultancy. I am Richa Singh, a master's graduate from Columbia University and an HR professional. I would be moderating our today's discussion. So welcome to you all.
Thank you.
The Jindal School of Government and Public Policy is part of the OP Jindal Global University, one of the India's most promising humanities and liberal arts universities. Jindal's School of Government and Public Policy is a research-driven institution and offers a range of undergraduate and postgraduate courses in the domain. The school intends to promote an interdisciplinary studies and joint teaching and research programs in partnership with the schools of law, business and international affairs, liberal arts and humanities. The BA Honours in Social Science and Policy is a 3-year residential program and is one of its kind in the country to offer an undergraduate degree in the domain. As mentioned before, we have with us two esteemed speakers from representing the university. Professor Sudarshan, he is the Dean, the Executive Director for the Center for Global Governance and Policy. He has had distinguished careers in the domain of research, development, programming, and governance. After he obtained a master's degree in economics from the Delhi School of Economics, he was elected to the Rhodes Scholarship. He joined the University of Oxford and obtained a master's degree in politics in 1977. He was also elected for a research fellowship at St. John's College, University of Cambridge, where he studied judicial review of economic legislation by the Supreme Court of India specializing in the interface of law and economics. We're also joined by Professor Sumeet Mhaskar, the Associate Professor and Associate Dean, Student Affairs. Professor Mhaskar is trained in sociology and political science. He holds a doctorate in sociology from the Department of Sociology and St. Antony's College, University of Oxford. He obtained his MA and MPhil degrees in political science from the Center for Political Studies, JNU. Prior to joining the school, he was based at the Center for Modern Indian Studies at University of Göttingen. Professor Sumeet has also held positions at the Max Planck Institute for the Study of Religious and Ethnic Diversity in Göttingen Center for South Asia at Stanford University and International Center for Development and Decent Work at University of Kassel. Welcome, professors, and thank you for joining us. So, to start with, I have a question for Professor Sudarshan. Professor Sudarshan?
All right, go ahead.
Right. So, understanding the current state of affairs in India, why do you think a degree in social science and policy is relevant today? How do you think it prepares students for their future careers?
Well, I first want to underline as a point that we call our degree social science and policy. We don't call it social sciences and policy. And this comes from an understanding that the traditional ways in which departments of social sciences have been established have become somewhat outmoded in the present situation. So the core disciplines that are classified as social science, economics, psychology, political science, sociology, anthropology, in some cases law, all of them, usually universities have these as separate departments, and people join for an undergraduate program in economics or political science or sociology or whatever. Now, I think if you look at what's happened with the natural sciences, many of the old departments that used to be there in natural sciences have simply disappeared. You had, all those sorts of various departments have gone out of fashion, and very new departments have come in. So the natural sciences are rapidly adapting to the challenges of modern society and knowledge and the need for knowledge. Social sciences have been lagging behind. But in effect, what all of the social sciences are about is trying to understand how human beings relate to society and relate to their environment. So human beings dominate the environment in certain contexts. They can influence the environment in certain other contexts. And then you have the natural sciences, which may be concerned with the heavenly bodies, Mars and white dwarfs and all that, which are beyond the realm of ordinary human life. So I think that it's important to first grasp that there was at one point an understanding of knowledge as related to how do human beings relate to their environment. Now that's the basis. Now over time, we had all these various silos and differentiated disciplines so that people began to narrowly specialize in one or the other. And this is like, the famous Indian fable of the elephant in the room, where the 6 blind men went to find out what the elephant is like. And one held the trunk and said it's like a tree, and the other held its ears and said it's like a fan, and somebody held the tail and said it's like a snake. Now, there's a famous poem about it, but what that fable, which is actually an Indian fable, tells you is that you shouldn't have a very narrow perspective. You must try and get the full picture. Now, how do you get the full picture? If you go in narrow specializations. Therefore, we thought that it's important in our context to understand we have all these many challenges. Right now, the challenge of a pandemic, which is a challenge that requires us to understand human behavior, human psychology, economic issues, cultural issues, sociological issues, everything that you can conceivably imagine are insights derived from multiple social science disciplines converge in trying to tackle an issue like the pandemic right now and trying to understand what the world would be like after this pandemic. So we are actually talking in a context which fantastically underlines the importance of a interdisciplinary, holistic understanding, which is why we've designed this new program in social science and policy. We also think that it's important not to completely abandon the traditional disciplines. You do have political science, economics, and there may be young people who are more or less clear in their head that they would like to study political science or economics or sociology. They've thought about it and they are clear. But even in those disciplines now, there are major changes. Economics, for instance, is now greatly influenced by what has been learnt in psychology. So you have a whole new field called behavioral economics, and you have a whole lot of ways in which the conventional understanding of economics is being questioned. The assumption that we are all maximizers of utility and we are rational and we make our choices, all of those classic assumptions on the basis of which the economic man is created are being questioned or no longer being taught in that way. Now, the way economics is taught, you begin with game theory. You understand, how there are interactions, how there are losers, gainers, how you anticipate the moves of other persons. Yeah, I think I've laid
Absolutely.
out the case for a very interdisciplinary, holistic way of marshalling knowledge for the purpose of making a difference. So this is not knowledge for knowledge's sake. I mean, you can enjoy poetry for poetry's sake, literature for literature's sake. You're not looking for any instrumental or utility purpose. But our program is designed to actually serve a purpose, to equip a generation of students to be able to tackle the new and emerging problems that society has with phenomenal and rapid changes. So that's the goal of this particular experiment in education in the General School of Government and Public Policy. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, Professor Sudarshan. I think the program actually fills a very vital gap and covers, the newer aspects of where the field is actually going. Professor Mhaskar, if you're online with us, I would also, I think, given your deep understanding of stalwarts like Dr. Ambedkar, what lessons do you think students can draw from stalwarts like Ambedkar in the field? And how does that help them build a career later?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Richa. I think Professor Sudarshan has, already laid out, the different aspects of this particular course on public policy, and I won't really go much into that. But then all of us are wondering, actually, where do we end up with this degree? And most importantly, what will happen with the skills and knowledge that is acquired through this particular degree? And the other part is, who are the role models before us now? So once we are thinking about social science and policy, public policy. So as far as skills are concerned, obviously there is a wide-ranging exposure in this particular course in BA in social science and policy. And many of these skills are very much in demand in the current period where social media has become an important mode of communication. It is not that common knowledge, but major social media companies such as Facebook and Twitter are looking for people with skills in social sciences, which could be used for improving their further services and to reach out to the wider audience. Now, skills such as statistical data analysis, geographical information system are high in demand. But mere knowledge of these technical skills, like, anyone can learn statistical data analysis. Also, anyone can learn geographic information system, even outside the university. But mere knowledge of this technical skill without actually having an excellent command over the various ways in which society functions might not be very useful. And it is only when these skills are used together with a sound knowledge of society, economy, and politics that we can think about contributing for a better world. Now, this is exactly what historical personalities have done. And I'll come to Ambedkar in like 1 second. Many of these personalities you can take from east to west or north, south of India, wherever. Many of them were actually trained in social science and law discipline. And they have played an important role in society, in economy, and politics. There are wide-ranging role models in India. Several of you may have heard of social activist Medha Patkar, who obtained her degree in social work and played an important role in highlighting the problems faced by poor villagers who are affected by the construction of huge dams in Western India, as well as the displacement of slum dwellers. The other example we have is of Muralidhar Amte, popularly known as Baba Amte, who was trained as a lawyer, but dedicated his life for the cause of leprosy disease affected people in most poorest and backward regions of this country. In fact, we go back to the early 20th century, and now that we think of public policy as something now new, but if we go back to trace the genealogy of it, one can also think of those people who started the first school for girls in 1848, and then to the transformation that take place in terms of opposing the practices of sati, to making a more inclusive society. Now, as far as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is concerned, most of the people in the country have knowledge about his role in the making of the Indian Constitution. But there is more to the story. Ambedkar, as is widely known, did his bachelor's in arts from Bombay, and then did his master's and PhD in economics, which has already been highlighted by Richa. In addition, he also completed his law degree from London. Now, with these degrees in social sciences and law degree, he played an important role in what we understand today as public policy. One of the first things which is not that known is that he played an important role in laying down the guidelines for the Reserve Bank of India, which were very important for the initial functioning of the Reserve Bank. And as well as he played an important role in the first river valley project, which is the Damodar Valley. Today, in the times of Corona crisis, where the newspapers and online news portals are flooded with news about massive wave of migrant laborers going back to villages, the question of labor has become very important. Now, Ambedkar played a very important role in wide-ranging labor issues, from bringing down the working hours from 12 to 8 hours per day, then introducing dearness allowance, insurance to the employees. There is a recent legislation for providing maternity benefits to women employees that was passed recently. Ambedkar was one of his most important advocates in the 1930s. And there were provisions for women employees in the factories that were made. The other issue which was he was an important advocate was the issue of bonded labor, which was intertwined with gender and the caste system. And he effectively addressed this issue in the Bombay Legislative Assembly. And now today we are talking about giving equal share to male and female children in the property rights. Now these were advocated by him immediately after the independence when he held the position of a law minister. So if you look at people like Ambedkar, and there is wide-ranging leaders. We are just decided to pick up on him because there was recently, that was his birth anniversary. And there was discussion about his contribution to the society, politics. And I think as a public policy school and as a degree in social science and public policy, this is what the students can actually look up to. So this is one of the role models, but there are wide-ranging role models. And this is what they can do with their skills. And as I said, it's not just mere skills that we are imparting. It's skills together with a sound knowledge about the society, economy, and polity, which is extremely important for making useful interventions. And this is where actually we can go back to looking up important people and make important contributions for the society.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Mhaskar. I think, with hearing to all of this, I'm sure students will be now excited to know that how can they start this journey and how can they contribute.
Sure.
So we would now like to introduce, Mr. Dhaval Mehta in the discussion. Under the vision of Mr. Mehta, his organization, TNI Career Counseling, has established itself as a global education advisory, providing career counseling services to students across the world. I would now request Dhaval to take the discussion forward and to talk a little more about the bachelor's program in social science and policy. Dhaval?
Thank you, Richa. Well, I'm so glad to be here today. I think it's a beautiful day out there. We're all in our own homes and, at the university. I can see a beautiful wall at the back for Dr. Sudarshan and Mr. Sumeet. I can really see that we all can function very well, even given our homes, and our lives are still. We feel even though we're at home, we're back at our campus. I think it's beautiful how we can do this session all together. I think that public policy. So. This area of public policy is also fairly dear to me. I feel that we have a need for a program like this, which really takes into consideration many aspects. And I think that, maybe that's one of the things which I would like, Professor Sudarshan and Professor Sumeet to probably highlight in terms of the coursework. I think that the coursework that I see here, which is designed is very competitive. It's giving enough room to grow through electives as well. What I would love to know is, and I'm sure the audience here as well, we could see that Jindal has one of the top law schools in the nation. And, it's also one of the youngest universities to be part of the QS rankings. Now, all of this, and of course, the vision that I've heard that Professor Sudarshan and Professor Sumeet have for the program, I'd love to know more about how the curriculum and the pedagogy have been set or designed. I think that will really throw a lot more light, on both the programs for economics and policy.
If I may just chip in response to you. Firstly, that the Jindal Global University is different from other universities in the sense that although we have 9 schools and each like the School of Government and Public Policy, physically, in fact, you will not find 9 schools if you came to our university. You will find a building which I must say sometimes strikes me as some unidentified flying object that's been placed in the wheat fields of Sonipat. It's a very interesting, architecturally a very interesting design, but it's not divided up into different schools. And in the very physical outlay of the university, the idea of interdisciplinarity is evident. In other words, although students are admitted to different programs and different schools, and faculty teach in different schools, they're all in it together. And we've structured the curriculum as in such a way that the forenoon, it's a residential university, so there's all the time, on campus. The forenoon is devoted to what we call the core subjects of a particular school. So it could be social science policy, it could be BA honors in economics or the masters in public policy or masters in economics in our school. But the latter half of the day, we allow students to take up courses from any of the other schools, and we call them cross-listed courses. And this is very, very important. So the whole approach to a pedagogy is to say, what is the world like? What are the important issues in the world? And how are we going to deal with it? Well, we have to deal with industrialization, urbanization. The world is getting rapidly urbanized more, while India still remains predominantly an agricultural country, but a large number will move into cities over time. Livelihoods would be in cities. Then there's a whole world of finance and specialization in finance. There's climate change, water, agriculture. And then there's a whole lot of reordering of social relations. And this is one of the glorious legacies of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, to actually try and bring to life a constitutional preamble value of fraternity. That is to give up the old segmented divisions that we've had in our society to make us feel more as one set of people in a country. So the reordering of social relations is going on. And this is, very important. And there's also technology and the rapid changes in technology, rapid changes in data. So all of these are happening around us. And so we want our students to be able to draw upon not just what can be taught in one particular school and one program, but to be able to, so we encourage our students, for instance, those currently doing economics, to also take courses in geographic information systems from the School of Liberal Arts. We encourage them to take courses in that are related to law, constitutional law, because I think every citizen should have a solid understanding of some of the fundamental premises of our Constitution. So that's the way the university functions. Interdisciplinarity, the possibility to take courses in other schools. We also encourage our students, we've got a whole set of international collaborations. I mean, many of the universities that are well established in the top league have been kind and generous to a young university and have allowed us to create summer schools and winter schools in Oxford, in Harvard, in the University of California at Berkeley, in the Wharton School of Finance, in Pennsylvania University. They have allowed our students to be able to go for summer and winter internships at a highly subsidized cost. Normally, these programs would be very prohibitively expensive for most people in India, and definitely for our students, but for these arrangements. And that kind of broadens their mind. We encourage our students to go on these programs. We also have arrangements where, for instance, in the current batch, in the BA Honours Economics, we are allowing a couple of students to go and spend the entire year, the third year, in the London School of Economics, taking courses there. And we are establishing equivalents for credits they would have earned here, had they been here, with the credits that they will now get at the London School. And the London School program is a year, 9-month program. And so if we give credits for that, it makes up for the third year, so they can get the BA Honours degree from the Jindal Global University and the year's degree from the London School of Economics. So that's a kind of a dual degree option that works very well. So these are the kinds of institutional advantages that the university has because of its memoranda of understanding with so many universities, just in the West. I must emphasize that it's exciting for students to also go to, say, Indonesia or to Malaysia, where it's another kind of a experience. And
absolutely, and I think that's incredible. If I might have to say that, because I've been on campus, at OP Jindal Global University, and I find it endearing to see the facilities, the infrastructure that you have in place, and having 9 colleges, just the amount and the variety of courses. I think that's incredible, because that gives you so much breadth, and depth both. It's like the tea that we were discussing about, Professor Sudarshan. And I think that I think is so required, and that brings me to that next question is that what kind of students then are you looking for? Because, when we're looking at Dr. Ambedkar, and, you see that he was so motivated, he's sort of been a lifelong champion of civil rights. He got his PhD in 1927. He was one of the first ones to do that from India outside. So all of these things, also bring me to that question. What kind of students are you really looking for as well? And what kind of students should be applying?
Well, before I hand over,
and I'm sure this will be for both Sumeet and you, because I'm sure that you'll both have that.
Young people nowadays are no longer driven by their parents' preferences as to what they should study and learn. There used to be several generations of us, including me, who had parents who were very clear that you had to do medicine or engineering to have a worthwhile life, and all other subjects that you may pick somewhat secondary. And law was, in fact, the bottom of that list. But now law has acquired a certain respectability because what good lawyers can earn is pretty substantial. And so law has graduated. But nonetheless, there are these expectations of parents that, you should go off and do this. But young people now are thinking for themselves. They are looking for opportunities. Of course, they're looking for opportunities where their standard of living would be good and assured. But they're also looking for intellectual challenges. They're looking for some purpose and meaning in what they wish to do. And they are exploratory. I mean, you would never have students in India who would think that it's a good idea to take a gap year between doing an undergraduate degree and going to, a postgraduate degree or higher studies, to go and work somewhere, to say become a volunteer with the United Nations volunteers, or to go and work in an NGO. These things are all getting to be more and more commonplace compared to what they were. So what it shows is that young people now are looking upon themselves as playing a part in public life, as not simply thinking in very narrow terms, as that the parents' ambitions for them were undoubtedly narrow. In other words, they shouldn't, all middle class in India have been on the edge of kind of, the line between great difficulty, adversity, and destitution, and being comfortable is a very thin one in a country like ours. That kind of insecurity that earlier conditioned the acquisition of knowledge has disappeared. There's more self-confidence in students, and they wish to take up challenges and learn things where they know the skills and knowledge they apply would have a place in the future world. And in the future world, the traditional jobs are not going to be there. And so they're going to be very entrepreneurial.
I would also think that, how, the critical thinking skills are developing, as you rightly said, for the younger generation, the new generation of students, you can already see they're asking those right questions. Essentially why. And that brings me even to the, the board of questions that we have. So, there's Arisha Verma and Avijit Chakravarti have asked questions fairly right, saying that, my question is, after pursuing a degree in social science and policy in undergraduate, can we go for international relations in the postgraduate realm? And I think that, maybe there is, and I can see that happening at OP Jindal very well, because there's a pathway towards a master's program that you have incorporated, and maybe talking about that also would really be able to highlight how you have set up industry and academia as sort of options for career development.
Sumeet, would you?
Yeah. Thanks, Sudarshan. Yeah, I think it's These are very important questions. And I think one of the things that we see also from social media and through the debates on what does the youth want. So one of the important things that I have observed as a social scientist is that there is this massive energy of youth. They want to do something for the society. And then they also want to have a career, because this is what the parental pressure is. Now, this is where this particular course on social science and policy actually is a perfect match, where this is a course which will offer them all the necessary skills, which will, of course, may enable them to make certain kind of career, but use also that career opportunity to do something for the society. So if, to answer your question and what exactly students we are targeting, maybe this is one of the ways. I'm sure there are wide-ranging students. The second part is about what kind of jobs they do or what kind of opportunities. The one broader rubric is all the development organizations, from wide-ranging from a small little non-governmental organization to UNDP to ILO. So you can just name them, and there are opportunities for students who are trained in these organizations, to also our Niti Aayog, which was remodeled as from the Planning Commission earlier. So I think this is where they could go. But just to add a few things to what Professor Sudarshan has already added in terms of courses, what we have in addition to the courses is wide-ranging research seminars. So we have so many wide-ranging topics, very specialist speakers who are coming from, from various disciplines of social science and law and philosophy. They come and give lectures. So students are really exposed to wide-ranging knowledge, not just inside the classroom, but also through these different research seminars. And the other part is what we call as clinical courses, which is a very rare thing for a bachelor's level degree, where bachelor level students actually go to the field and study a particular phenomenon. Now, this is what we call clinical courses. So I teach a survey methods course where students are actually sent to the field to learn how to do a survey. Now, this is something you will not find even in the master's level courses in many of the universities. Okay. And then there are wide-ranging courses or clinical courses which are offered by the law school. So I think this is what we can offer in terms of courses, but also the students can really get a wide-ranging exposure to wide-ranging also job opportunities. So we don't want to necessarily put up into this matter of job opportunities, as I don't think Sudarshan and Professor Sudarshan and me are comfortable with that. But the idea is that we understand the parental pressure, but I think this is where a middle ground can be created, where the career and doing something for the society can be created, this space.
No, absolutely. And I agree with that. I think there is a huge need, as I was discussing the other day, is that, if there's something to do, even if you look at industry, there is a dearth of project evaluation experts, right? And we were discussing it yesterday. And maybe if you can draw a little bit about your experience also in these industries, and how many of them really want students in this realm of public policy. I think that maybe if you can throw some more light on careers that you expect. What I can see is there's plenty of careers in the government. There's careers in think tanks, entrepreneurship, careers in research. I think that making an impact to society and fulfilling your own financial commitment also, I think that those are very possible today through this course, and maybe how you envision it would really help most of them understand it.
Yeah, I see. The thing is, we've given a lot of thought to what is the demand in the wider world for what kind of knowledge and skills. And we try to equip our students with those skills and knowledge sets. One serious shortage in this country is expertise in evaluating programs. Whether it's government or the corporations, all of them have a line item in their budgets for evaluation and to get feedback. Public policy is all about initiating a program and then getting feedback on how well it's working, how adjustments, course corrections, and so on. But the number of people with proper skills to do this in a methodical way, bringing in knowledge of statistics, econometrics, to do a proper evaluation, there is a serious shortage. And so we emphasize in our programs, whether it's the MA Economics or BA Economics or Social Science and Policy, there would be a strong component of that. So it opens up a whole world of opportunities, because everyone is saying, we want to know, we want to get a bang for the buck. We want to know if our money is being spent well, and so on. And the only people who can answer that question with any confidence or intelligence is those who have trained in project evaluation techniques. So that's that. The other important thing is to improve the quality of public policy. We need to get, no matter what it is, whether you're a corporation doing business and you have customers, or you are government at the very local level or the government of India level, you need to be able to understand what is the public that you're addressing. So the public policy is singular, but we are dealing with very many publics. There are different populations. And the ability to be able to talk to ordinary people and to be able to understand what it is, how a problem looks from their vantage, from their side, is a very important skill. It has to be acquired. It doesn't come naturally. So if I plonked somebody in a Haryana village and said, have a conversation with these villagers, it's not that it will come naturally as to how you have a conversation, how do you find out about how they live, and so on. But because we care about that, we get our students out in collaboration with NGOs like Priya, which have programs in our vicinity. We get our students to be comfortable sitting down and talking to people from different walks of life, from villages, for women, children, men, and to draw out knowledge from them. So one of the things I would say as a value of our university is that we do not think that it's only the textbooks and the knowledge that professors and research publications have counts as knowledge. What ordinary people can tell you, now if you want to deal with the, say for instance, the air pollution problem in the Delhi area, a good part of it being caused by farmers burning their crops because there's no value for the residue of the crops. You need to talk to them. You need to be able to understand why it is that they are doing these things, what compels them to do it, and then to inform that knowledge, bring it into public policy. So just to assume that public policy can be made by people sitting in air-conditioned offices in Delhi or in the Niti Aayog is wrong. You need to be able to reach out. And one of the nice things that's happening now is Niti Aayog and different ministries and different district administrators want young people who have the capacity and the knowledge to be able to go out into the field, talk to ordinary people, and bring back from the field knowledge that will inform public policy. So this is very much part of our training and skill development in our university. We don't want these students to be just sitting in and looking at the screen and library, but we want them to be able to communicate and talk to people and learn.
So so what I understand here is that curiosity that you have, right? That needs to be stemmed, or you need to lead that with more active approach of reaching out within the industry, having field work, things of that sort, which sort of encourages them to think more proactively, more critically, about these areas. And I think that's fundamentally, something that we all need across programs, but particularly this kind of a program. And I think that's what I feel today most of them need. I mean, look at CSR. If you see, it's such a big area today. All of the companies that have CSR, they would love to have someone come from a policy background and be able to actually strive to change things. I'm sure that most of them would be looking at hiring from this kind of a program.
Yes, in fact, that's true. We initially started off with what you might call a captive CSR, which is the CSR initiatives of the Jindal Steel and Power Corporation, which where Naveen Jindal is our benefactor and founder. But now we've got our students going to a number of other big corporations, including Tata's and Infosys and places like that, for in their CSR operations, because the skills that we provide and the knowledge that we give is about, in the end, it's all about increasing the supply of public goods and merit goods, health, education, environment, sanitation, basic issues that a developing country has to contend with. So many of the CSR initiatives of the large corporations are now very professional. They want qualified people. I mean, it's not that, oh, I mean to do good, I want to go and help, I want to be the good Samaritan. That is all very well, but you need to know what you're doing. And you need to be able to use your time effectively and resources effectively. And so that's the kind of professional standards. You know, what I keep emphasizing is that we need to develop all of this as a kind of a practice. You see, if we call medicine a practice, yes, it has internal standards of excellence. You know, law is a practice because it has internal standards of excellence. So I wish that public policy would be approached in the same way, that there are internal standards of excellence that you must fulfill and meet, high professional standards, and that includes high degree of integrity and ethics and values of that kind. No corruption, zero tolerance for corruption. That should become a
question. You also have an ethics, class as a part of the program, where I'm sure that you were able to talk about that bit as well, and students can draw from that.
Yes, because it's about we not all good things go together always. Now if you save people from getting infected from the coronavirus, the price that you're paying for that is you're shutting down the economy, right? Yeah. The desirable thing would be there's no coronavirus and the economy is prosperous and flourishing, but we can't have both at the same time. Now, in situations like this, you need to make practical judgment. Yes. You need to be able to decide. Suppose we send our student to work with a district collector in one of the districts in, say, West Bengal. Now, the district collector is going to see, can I open up some avenues of work? Can I not? Our students would be equipped to find the data and the evidence that will help that person make that judgment, right? That's the point. Practical judgment, dealing with real life challenges, and then to be able to prioritize ethics. In other words, we have to care about the last person. We have to care about what Ambedkar emphasized, people with the least standing socially, economically in society, which is, the class of people for whom he fought.
Yes.
And people who are lost. We have to care about the last, the least, and the lost.
And it's really interesting that you bring this point up, because, today, I'm sure the government has to really evaluate, because, so think about this, how many, people are also going to die of starvation with the lockdown versus actually the ones who will die of the virus itself. So how do you look and, how are you going to analyze this situation and then take a call on, should we then proceed and be in a lockdown, for instance, right? So, exactly. and how much longer should we actually stay in this lockdown? How much more is it going to affect us? So these, I think this part also, I'm sure that through a process of this, of the program, I'm sure that they would be well equipped to answer many of these things, because you have the statistical methods to derive all of this, I'm sure. And I'm sure that's what the government is doing, at a level of how to come up with an answer to that. So I think it's interesting in this part of the discussion. Maybe, Sumeet, what I would also like you to do is just talk about the 3 years and just lay it out, if you can, of how the students would benefit across these 3 years of the program, and then just compare the economics with the policy, if you can, Because I think that, electives kick in the third year, where in the first 2 years is a little bit more structure.
Yeah, I think what actually, Professor Sudarshan has already highlighted,
Yes.
that we go from like a very wide-ranging subjects, and then we try to narrow, or we give the students to narrow their choices. So we give them exposure to politics, to sociology, to history, to economics. So this is where they usually start with. And then they can actually go on with specialization in the kind of subject they find it interesting. And one thing, what I would like to add to the previous question that you had asked to Professor Sudarshan,
Yes.
is that unlike the previous understanding that these major policies have to be only prepared by the economist, uh, that particular framework has been completely broken down. Now, even now, with sociologists are pretty much acquiring exactly those skills which earlier were absolute preserve for the economists. Now, so for exactly these kind of skills, you do not need a degree in economics. You can actually do good statistical analysis without actually acquiring an economics degree. Obviously, having an economics degree enables us to also look at the economic part, which is very extremely important, but also to bring in other dimensions. And we have already discussed that many of these courses are clinical courses. So students don't just sit in the classroom and think about the problems, but they actually confront them and go to the villages, go to the different kind of neighborhoods in the city, and then they talk to them. Uh, as far as economics is concerned, it's a very specialized BA economics honors degree. But even in that degree, we have an element of something called development economics, or the politics of development course, which I taught together with another professor in our school.
Sure.
And we actually ensured that many of these economic students also went to the field, and they did some course which involved what we call as clinical courses, which involve them to actually go and talk to people about these different kind of policies, about which sometimes the government are overestimating, underestimating their performances. And I think this is very important. So dimensions. With social science and policy, students actually do not necessarily have to be the specialist in economics in order to be the policy practitioners.
Sure.
And this is also one of the important highlights about this particular.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Also, a question I think that, we should all probably address is, with the COVID situation, how do you foresee, requirements in terms of students who are applying to change possibly for the bachelor's program, if at all? Maybe if you want to highlight those factors, because I'm sure students are also worried about how that's going to play out. From what I understand is that classes are scheduled to start right now on time, unless that change might happen at a later point. Because I know that OP Jindal Global University has done a brilliant job in terms of moving classes online. And there are students who are taking them right now as well. So we're providing some of the classes as well online. So the infrastructure is really well in place. Just maybe any part of the COVID-19, updates that you would like to provide students would be great.
Yeah, no, given the current context, what we've begun to do, even for students who have expressed an interest and have sent an application, and they have not made up their minds to join us, we are sending them materials, exercises, so that they, and we would be prepared to do some online courses with them even before they join.
Yes.
So that, you see, one of the concerns we have is that students who are, stay interested in economics may have some apprehension about mathematics, numbers. Now, this is something that if the mathematics is just a language as far as economics is concerned. It just makes things easier, more elegant, and more precise than words. That's why economics uses so much mathematics, but it's used as a language. You're not really studying mathematics, or making great advances in mathematics. You're applying some basic mathematics. So we'd like to get students to be comfortable with that. So even before they join, we are sending them exercises so that they can be comfortable joining the program. And with respect to, say, the new program in social science and policy, we'd like to highlight some exercises, some issues which they can already begin to think about even before they come and join us, right? Then, having joined, say they join the BA honors in economics and they wish to change to social science and policy, that should be possible. After 2-3 weeks, when we generally allow for our elective courses, students time to check out the course to see if they really like it. So there's a window of time in which they can change. The same logic would apply to the courses they get enrolled in. They to join law, and they may wish to change their mind and say, okay, I've done the LSAT exam, I'm qualified, I'm in the law school, but I'd rather join social science and policy, and then come back to law after acquiring a first degree, and then go and do the LLB course afterwards. If a student wishes to do that, they can in our university. And the other point I wish to emphasize is that we are likely to begin a whole lot of exciting one-year programs at the master's level for students to progress into. So we are no longer bound by the University Grants Commission. Right now, we call this program, say, MA Public Policy. We call it MA, and in brackets, Public Policy. But it really should be called Masters in Public Policy, which hitherto we couldn't do because the UGC does not recognize that. But now we are liberated from the UGC. We are an institution of eminence. We can design our own courses. We have that degree of autonomy, and we are planning to design a whole lot of exciting courses that are of a year or a 9-month duration. Earlier, I mentioned that some of our students are going to do 9 months in the LSE and get an LSE degree, and then that 9 months will count for the third year here and get a degree here. We could do the same within the university itself to allow a certain progression to our undergraduates to a master's level.
Brilliant. Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much. I think this was a lovely conversation, and I think we've not even realized where we've actually kind of progressed. It's almost close to 5 o'clock, and I think, Richa, I'll hand it to you so that you can conclude the meeting and take any questions that we might have.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor, for bringing such a broad perspective to the program and by highlighting the value that the program delivers to the students. Thank you so much, Dhaval. Before we move to the program, Dhaval, would you like to talk a little bit more about your student advising experience and how your organization has been contributing to supporting students in their journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that it's very important today, as I see that students are very curious, and they're very open about their thought process. I think that's very important, and I think that's important for their journey. But they always have this question about, if I'm going to dedicate 3 years, the next 3 years to 4 years of my life, moving ahead, how do I make up my mind? How do I be sure that this is exactly the area that I want to, choose? And I think we spend a lot of time trying to analyze that and ask the questions about, why do you really want to choose a certain area? And that's what we discussed even today. One of my first questions was, what kind of students should look at a program like this? And, so many of them who have subjects that they've taken up, like mathematics and, economics, or, you don't have policy, or you don't have an introduction to policy even in schools. So what then needs to happen is they need to broadly get an idea, which I think this session today would have given them. And that's what we do is, first we have to analyze what their strengths are, how are they thinking, how investigative, how curious they are. What are some of the areas which would suit them? And then we propose those areas to them and then kind of walk them through and explain to them how these different roles or how these different degrees can really help them proceed in their lives, whether it's industry, whether it's academia. And then we engage them through different webinars and, areas of discussions with experts as well. And I think that that's really over the years helped us reach to over 50,000 students. And so I think that that's the way that we are seeing, envisioning, and I think that we're going to grow far more now because you have more adaptation to the online method as well. I think which is going to allow more and more students to really enter sessions where they can learn about these things as well. So that's not going to be a barrier anymore.
Yeah, and
thank you so much, Dhaval, for sharing that.
Yes, Professor. No, I just wanted to underline that our university has now got a reputation for having the best law school in the country, and I think students must take advantage of the fact that we've got a fantastic faculty and an outstanding law school. Because public policy is all about law. You cannot enforce any public policy unless you translate it into a law. And to understand how the law works is very, very essential. And no other institution, I think, is better placed than us to provide that link between law and policy.
Sure. Thank you so much, Professor. We're almost at the end of our timing, so we'll take one question if that's all right. One of our participants would like to know if, after pursuing a degree in social sciences and policy at an undergraduate level, can we go for an international relations as a career, as a program at their postgraduate level? I know most of the questions that we've had have been covered during the discussion. Any quick tips around this?
Yes, certainly. The whole point about a good university is to be able to give opportunities for continuation. And in our university, we have the School of International Affairs, which is a postgraduate program called Law, Diplomacy, and Business. Now, this is a very interesting combination. And it's a combination with where international business is treated on par with law, international law, and diplomacy. And this combination allows a range of options for students interested in international relations. One, of course, is the Indian Foreign Service, but then the intake for it is so minuscule compared to the number of students we have. But there are other opportunities in the development organizations, in a whole range of institutions that are devoted to culture, for instance. We have in our university a Taiwan Education Center that teaches Mandarin. And so across the country, they have facilities. And so a number of embassies have programs that are related to research, culture, and knowledge, where graduates who have this familiarity with a foreign language, for one, and international relations can go to. So the undergraduate programs are a stepping stone to a whole world of exciting possibilities.
Sure. Thank you so much, Professor. So with this, we do come to an end to our today's discussion. Due to the paucity of time, we have not been able to answer all your questions, but participants can actually connect with the team offline by sharing their questions on the email, as is mentioned on the slide. Yeah.
Maybe Sumeet, if you have an email ID that you might want to, put in there on the chat box,
yes,
know where or who to reach in case if anyone has more questions. I think that would be great. But it's been a pleasure talking to all of you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We've also shared a quick link, for feedback for the session. And with that, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to Professor Sudarshan and Professor Sumeet, as well as Dhaval, for joining us today. Thank you so much for the wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.